Hello, everyone. Hope you all are doing great. First of all, thank you very much for tuning in with Recro. This is Ankita. I'm working as a senior software engineer at Swiggy and a part of Recro, which is a developers focused organization where we are trying our level best every day to connect the talented developers with the fast growing startups like Dunzo, Swiggy, CureFit, Oran, and a lot more similar startups. So today we have a webinar on testing React components with Jest and React testing library with Rajat Vijay. I hope some of you remember him from his last session on production TypeScript from a front-end perspective. And for those who don't, Rajat is a front-end engineer manager at Certa and comes with over 4 years of experience in building highly scalable, reliable, and secure front-end systems. In the recent past, he has worked with Silicon Valley startups, founded his own tech company, and consulted for a couple of tech organizations based out of the US. So, Rajat, please go ahead.
Hey guys, so this webinar is about testing React components. We'll talk about the tools, the purposes, and patterns. So I'll start with an introduction of mine. My name is Rajat, and as Ankita has already told you, I work as a front-end engineering manager at Certa. I'll just tell you a bit about Certa. So Certa is a no-code workflow automation and management system. It is a SaaS enterprise product. We have clients like Walmart and Facebook, and we in the front-end side we have a tech stack of TypeScript, React.js. We do heavy test-driven development with a tight integration of our CI platform. About this webinar, so we write a lot of test cases for our React components, but we rarely realize the tools and the purpose that each tool serves while writing the test cases for our components. So we use Jest DOM, React testing libraries being recently being very famous for writing test cases for your React components, but we barely understand what purpose that each tool serves. So that is the main agenda of this talk. So we'll start with Jest. We'll talk about different testing patterns like testing prop updates. How do you test accessibility? How do you actually make your testing code reusable? And we'll also talk about integration test cases for your components. So let's start with Jest. What is Jest? Jest is a JavaScript test runner. It has nothing to do with React testing or React component testing or any other framework specific testing. It is a simply JavaScript test runner. It provides you 6 major things. First is a single command to run all of your test cases, and that command is called Jest. You can use that command. That command actually finds all of the test cases, all of the test files in your code base, and then run it. It also provides you a watch mode. Let me show you in the. You can see the editor also, right? So I have this test case called sum.js. This is a function called sum.js. It's a very simple basic function, and it has a test case returned to it for testing the expected outcome. What Jest does is Jest provides you a single Jest command that you can run that will automatically find the test cases, all of the test cases, all of the test files that you have in a code base, and run your test cases against them. It also gives you a watch mode, so you can run yarn Jest watch. So what this watch mode does is it keeps running your test cases automatically whenever you change something in your test cases file. So the test cases run again. It says that you have changed something that made your test to fail. Let's fix it. It also gives you capability to check coverage. So coverage is the percentage of code that is being covered by tests. So it says you have 100% coverage. All of these things are provided by Jest itself. You don't need any other library to do all of these things. Jest provides a lot of other things. For example, it lets you write specifications for your components. So for example, let me comment this out. You can, while doing TDD, test-driven development, the main practice that we follow is we write the specification, The way you write specification is you do test.todo and you write the statement in English that you want to actually expect about your component. Then you write the test cases inside that component. So you simply remove this to do and then you start writing test cases for your component. And then you write the component to make these tests pass. Jest provides this utility called todo that lets you write specification. So when you go ahead and do just yarn jest, it will say that you have one test in todo. It also provides other utilities to test and debug your test cases. To debug your test cases, for example, if you know that this particular test is failing a lot of times, you can simply do test.only. And what Jest will do is it will just run this particular test case and will ignore all other test cases. So all of the other test cases are skipped, only this test case has been run. Apart from this, you can even do skip. Test.skip will just skip this particular test case and run all other test cases. The next main thing that Jest provides is the assertion helper utilities. So for example, when a Jest runs your test cases, it creates a JavaScript environment which has this global function called expect that is used that you can use to actually expect what outcome or what expected result you are expecting from that component or a function. So expect has this assertion utilities on top of it called to equal or to be. There are other assertion utilities. Let's see. So you can see there are a bunch of other utilities. So these utilities help you actually assert what outcome you are expecting out of a component. The next library that we'll be talking about is Jest DOM. Jest DOM is built on Jest. It provides you DOM specific assertion utilities. For example, let me go to Jest DOM file. So for example, this is how you will actually test your component. So let's say you have this app component which renders a form, and inside this form there is a input component and there is a button component, and this button is by default disabled. How do you actually test that this button is by default disabled in a test? So you use this render function from the React DOM library. You render your app component inside this root div that you just created using DOM document.create element, and then you query a button inside the rendered DOM using the root.query selector that JavaScript provides, the function that JavaScript provides, and you can actually do button.disabled to be true. So what we are doing is we are testing a disabled attribute on the button element and we're expecting it to be true. Now focus on this line. What this line does is you're actually testing for the disabled to be true, but this is a lot of code that you have to write for every time testing anything to be disabled. You can test a button to be disabled. You can test an input component to be disabled. You can test a full form to be disabled. What Jest DOM provides you is this function called to be disabled that wraps all of this logic inside it. Jest DOM has other utilities too. For example, it has to be disabled, to be enabled, to be empty, to be empty DOM element, and all of these things. When we create a new React application using create React app, we generally get all of these things out of the box, and we have this assumption that all of these things are provided by Jest itself, but that is wrong. It is being provided by Jest DOM, which is configured in your setup tests.ts file. What you're doing here is you're importing testing library -jest /jest DOM. What this does is it has a bunch of assertion utilities. For example, it will have to be disabled and to be enabled. And what it internally does is it takes the expect function of the jest and extend it to have all of these things. And that's how you get to be disabled function available on the expect jest global function. So that is the use case of jest DOM library. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, React testing library. This is the main library that we use majority of our time while writing test cases for the React components. This library is provides a lot of utility helpers, but more than utility helpers, it's a very opinionated and a particular approach-oriented library that tells you how to write test cases for your component. So it has like three basic rules while writing test cases for your component. First is always write test cases while keeping in mind how the user will interact with your component. You should never test a component's internal state or its instance variable. You should always test what happens when a user enter a data into that input box. What happens when the user clicks on that button? What happens when the user navigates to a different route? All of these things are very user specific. You actually write test cases how a user will interact with your component rather than how a component is being internally implemented. Is it being implemented using a class component or a function component? Is it using a hook or an HOC? All of these things becomes irrelevant when you're writing test cases for your component. This approach has seen a lot of benefits over the long period of time. For example, when React introduced hooks, all of the test cases using the enzyme library started failing when people started migrating their code bases to hooks, because those test cases specifically tested for the internal state of the component. How does the state of a component looks like at a particular point of time? All of these cases start failing. So while migrating your code base from classes to function, you'll have to update your test cases too. But if you were using this approach, React testing libraries approach, you will not have to update your test cases while migrating. This holds true when you're migrating your HOCs to hooks, or you're migrating your JavaScript code to TypeScript, and you're doing all of the other migrations, because at the end, how your user interact with the components, how a user expect your component to behave remains the same. This is the core principle of this React testing library. But what this library actually provides you is a function to render your function to render your React component into a set of DOM elements. So rather than doing any assertions on your React component tree, you actually do assertions on your rendered DOM. So this makes this approach um, free from how you have implemented it, free from how you have, like, what framework you're actually using or what libraries you're actually using. All of these things becomes irrelevant when you actually query or assert your assertions on the rendered DOM instead of a React component tree. So this library provides you a render function which you can use to render a DOM tree from your React component tree. Then it provides you a set of helper function that you can actually use to query the DOM. And then you can use the jest assertions to expect some output on the rendered DOM. It also provides you better debugging capabilities, which we'll see just in a second now. Like, what are those better debugging capabilities and how does the event management using Fire event works? So let's see an example. React testing library. So I have this test case written. So let's first see the app component. This is the same app component which renders a label, an input component, a button which is disabled by default, and a form has an on submit on it. This on submit prevents the default browser's behavior and calls the on submit function that is being passed from the props. And that on submit is an optional prop on your component. So let's see what the first test case does. It says should render an input element. So we use this render function from the testing library and render the app component in it. And we use the get label by text function to query a input element in the rendered DOM. Now focus on these words. We query a input element on the rendered DOM. not on the rendered component tree. Get by label text, what this function does is it queries an element that has a label with the text name. So we have this label name, which is associated with this input using this ID name. So we actually query what we get as an output is this input element, and we expect it to be in the document. Now, as you can see, this input to be in the document is also a jest DOM utility that is extended on the expect function of the jest library. So in overview, what this test does is it renders your component and expect the input element to be rendered in your DOM. That is the whole flow of writing every test case using test cases library. You render your component into a DOM, you query some DOM elements, and then you expect them to be in the document or to have some specific attributes or to behave in a certain way. Let's talk about the better debugging capabilities that this React testing library provides. So to see the better debugging capabilities, I'll just run this specific test. I'll write test.only. I'll render the app component using the render function provided by React testing library. And then I do screen.debug. What is the screen? Screen is just an object that has all of the helper utilities that React testing library provides scoped to your component. So when I do screen.debug, it will print all of the DOM that is being rendered by this component. When I did screen.getLabel by text, all of these queries are scoped inside the DOM rendered by your component, just your component, not anything outside of it. So this screen is just scoping your queries inside the inside the component that you're rendering. So let's run this test. Before running it, I'll have to add .test to it. So remember when I said just by running a simple command just, you can actually run all of the test cases that you have. So how does just actually find where your test cases are? So just actually look for some specific keywords. For example, .test. So if your file has a .test keyword, it will automatically assume that it is a file that contains some test cases, and it will try running this file. There are other things like all of the files inside __test___ folder will be considered test cases file. All of the file having .spec.js are considered test cases file by Jest. So Jest just simply looks for all of these files that specify that agrees on these criteria and start running them. So to run this test case file, I'll just rename it to add a test suffix. And if I do yarn test, so now it's running my React testing library.test.jsx. And now this is the output. So when I did screen.debug, it logs the rendered DOM in your console. Now what this helps you to do is actually see what is the rendered DOM and how you can actually better write queries on top of it. So you can see that it has a disabled prop, so you can write queries on checking if the button has a disabled prop or not. You can see that this input has a label element associated with it. So you can write queries of the form screen.getLabel by text. So these are the better debugging capabilities that React testing library provides. The next thing that we were talking about is better event management using Fire Event. So let's remove this only from here and write the only here, which means when we are running a test cases for this file, only this test cases will be run. Going back to our app component, let's focus on this function handle submit, where we are actually calling the on submit function from the props when a user clicks on this button. What we are testing here is should call the on submit when provided. So when a user fills out the form and clicks on the submit button, the component should call the on submit, which was provided as a prop to the component. We are testing if if that function is being called or not. To test that, we actually mock a new function using jest.fn utility. It provides you a no operation function with a lot of data tracking around it. So you can track how many times it has been called. You can track if it has been called or not, what argument it has been called with, and a lot of other things. So we mock up a new function called on submit using jest.fn function, fn utility, and we pass it as a prop to the app component while rendering it. We again query the input element on the rendered DOM, and we fire a change event on it. So fire event provides a bunch of events that you can fire on DOM elements. For example, you can fire a change event, a blur event, a click event, a focus event, a key down event, and any other event that is possible in the browser. So you fire a change event on this input element with the value. You can write any value here. I'm writing my name here. So with this value Rajat, and then you query a button, and then you fire a click event on that button. And finally, when the button is clicked, you can expect that on submit function that you passed as an input, which you passed as a prop to your component, is being called exactly one time. So when I run this test, actually it ran automatically because it's running in the watch mode. Let's rerun this test. Yep. So now this passes. Let me try and make this case fail, and it fails, saying this on submit function should have called just one time, but you're expecting it to call twice. So that's how you can actually fire events on your function, on your DOM elements, using the fire event dot change, fire event dot click. The next thing that we'll be talking about is the user event library. The user event library is just a wrapper around fire event utility that React testing library provides, but it has a lot of other things. So let's rewind back a little and let's rewind back to the main principle of the React testing library. The main principle of React testing library says that your test cases should test how a user will interact with your component and how a user will expect your component to behave, right? And now think about whenever a user is typing something into your input element, it's not just the change event that is being fired. There are a bunch of event that is being fired. So first a focus event is being fired. Then a bunch of key down and key up event is fired. And finally a blur event is fired when the user blurs out of that input element. But when writing test cases, we just did fire event.change, which is not exactly how a user will interact with your component. So this is against the philosophy of React testing library. That's where user event module comes in. So let me go into that user event file. Let me update its name to have .test in the end of it. So that just is able to identify as a test file. And what I did here is I imported a user object from user event module inside the testing library package. It has all of the other events, like it has user.type. So we replaced fire event.change with user.type to imitate how a user will type in an input box. It It fires all of the focus, the key up, key down, blur events, and it again uses fire event function to fire all of those events. It has a type event, a focus event, a click event, and a lot of other events that you can actually use to imitate how a user will interact with your component. Let's try and run this. So what you can do, you can write yarn test and the path of this file to run just the test cases inside this file. and it passes. So it's a simple drop-in replacement of fire event. Most of the times, you just have to change a few things. For example, you have to create an object when calling fire event.change, but you just have to write what the user wants to type in the second argument of user.type. Next thing is testing prop updates. So this is a very generally used pattern where you're actually testing your component for what happens when a particular prop of that component gets updated. How does that component behave when a particular prop of that component is being updated? So for example, what we are doing here is, let me show it in the editor, prop update. Yeah. So the thing that we are actually testing is should call the onSubmit2 after re-rendering. So what we do is we mock a new function called onSubmit1. We render a function, we render a component using that prop. This render function provides you a re-renderer that you can actually call again, that you can call with the same component but updated props to render that component again with the updated props. So I query the input element, I enter the text in it, and then I re-render that component with a different submit function this time. So when I click on the submit button, it should call submit button 2 once and submit button 1 exactly 0. So to render a component with updated props, you just use the re-render utility provided by React testing library with the updated props. So let's run this test and see if it passes. Again, to run this, I have to write test, and let's run just this file, prop update. Yep, and a test case passes. So when we updated a prop using the re-render function provided by React testing library, it did not call the older prop, it actually called the newer prop when the submit button was clicked. So that's how you actually test a component for updated props. The next thing is testing accessibility. So let's talk about accessibility first. Accessibility is making your components accessible to screen readers, not necessarily just screen readers, but for accessible for people with disabilities so that they can use screen readers to use your website or use your application. Accessibility has been becoming very important nowadays when um, so writing test cases for accessibility issues in a component becomes more important, because breaking an accessibility is very easy as compared to breaking a core functionality of an application, because that gets noticed very easily. Accessibility breakages does not get noticed easily, so you have to write explicit test cases for them. But unfortunately, writing test cases for accessibility issues is virtually impossible. You can't write exhaustive test cases for accessibility issues. But we have this library called JustX that lets you write test cases for most obvious test cases for accessibility issues. So let's see how we can write a simple example of a test case. So I have this empty file. Let me import React in it. What I'm doing here is I'm just creating a component that has issues inside it. I'll write a test case to test for accessibility issues. I'll make the test case fail, and then I'll update the component to fix that accessibility issue. So my component is accessible for example, and it returns a form element which has an input of ID email and a submit button. of type submit. Now I write a test case for it. Should render a form with an accessible form. So test is a function that takes a string as a first argument that defines the specification that you're testing for. And a function is the second argument that just actually runs while running a test case. This is a function that just runs while running a test case. So as usual, we'll import the render function. So let's write the steps that we have to do. Render the component. Step 1. Step 2 is expect it to have no accessibility issues. So to render the component, we'll use the render function from React testing library. We'll render the accessible form. Now this accessible form returns a container. This container represents all of the DOM that is being rendered by this component. Now we import this library called JustAX. It has a function AXEX, and you can run it. Let's run it console.log. Wait, let's run X container, and let's take the results from it. It's a asynchronous function, so you have to write a wait in front of it, and you have to make your function async. And then let's first log the result. Let's move it inside the correct line. Let me run this test again. I'll have to rename it to add .test at the end of it. And let's see what happens when I run it. So for now, I'm just logging the output of X function from JustX library. And here it is. So it logs a bunch of things. I think the violations things makes more sense. So let's just print the violations. Violations is an array that provides accessibility violations in your rendered DOM. So it has exactly one violation. Let's fix that violation. What we can do is we can add a label. Let's see what that. So the violation also says that the type of violation is label, and it says ensure every form element has a label inside it. Right? JustAX also provide a assertion utility called to have no violations. Let's see if this is the correct name. Okay. And you can add it to expect function as we have seen previously to have no violations. Sorry. And you can test it directly here. Expect result to have no violations. Okay, I think I named it. Let me check the name. To have no violations, that is correct. Okay. Okay, but if we add a label here, let's add a label here. with HTML4, and we write the ID of this input element. And let's just log the result.violation again. Now you can see that there are no violations. So this is how you can actually use the X function to test for accessibility issues in your component. It follows the general accessibility guidelines that HTML specification specifies. It will not test for all of the accessibility issues in your component, but just the major ones. Next is writing custom render function. So far we have been using this render function that is provided by the React testing library out of the box. But majority of our times in your real applications, to render a particular component, you need to have a lot of context around it. For example, you might need to have a Redux provider around it, or a React internationalization provider around it, or some custom context that you have been using. You need to have that context provider also wrapped around it. And majority of the time, almost 80 or 90% of a component, those need those providers or HOCs wrapped around it to render it even inside a test scenarios. That's where writing custom render function helps you a lot. So this is a very generic example of a custom render function that renders your component inside a provider, a Redux provider. So what it does is it takes a UI as the first argument. The UI is similar to what you're providing here. This is your UI. The first argument of this function and render with Redux function remains the same. In the second argument, you can provide some initial state that needs to be seeded to your Redux store. You can even provide a store, which is optional. If you don't provide a store, that's fine. It will create a new store automatically. Use your initial state that you have provided and add a Thunk middleware. So if you're using any other middleware, you can, while implementing your own Redux render with Redux function, you can provide multiple middlewares that you need here. Like if you're using a Saga middleware or an observable middleware, you can write here. And you can simply use it like this. I'll just show you a small example here. In the easiest possible way, you can render your component that needs a Redux provider around it using render with Redux exactly in the same way that render renders your component. And this becomes a reusable render utility that you can use to render multiple components without writing this provider wrapper every time. There are other utilities that you can use. For example, you can use it to wrap it around a React internationalization provider. If your application serves multiple languages. And finally, let's talk about writing integration test cases. So what are integration test cases in the context of React components? So integration test case, the simplest way of defining an integration test cases is any test case that follows two principles. One is you're writing a test case for a parent component that renders a bunch of child components inside it. And instead of testing each child component, you're actually testing the whole functionality of a parent component. The second is each integration test case actually tests a core user flow. For example, you can test a sign-up flow, or you can test a login flow, or you can test a order placing flow, and so on and so forth. A very important thing to keep in mind is when writing integration test cases, you never make a network call. So for example, if your form is making an API call, let's say inside a user fict hook, it's making an API call, importing it from fetch users from API. So this is a function that returns a promise, and that makes an API call to fetch a list of users. and you are using it here, let's say, and you're doing dot then users, set users, inside users, and you have the state to hold all of your users inside the component. Now, when you're writing in um, integration test case for this component that actually makes an API call inside it, how do you actually mock this API call? Jest has this ability called jest.mock the import statement. So Jest will match this import statement and mock every function inside that is being imported with a mock function. So instead of calling the fetch users, the actual fetch users that makes an API call, just all of your test cases that has this line on top of them will be calling a mocked version of fetch users. So that this is how you can actually write test cases without making an actual network call. When you're making an actual network call, that becomes an integration, an end-to-end test case that actually tests your backend and your front end both at the same time. But we are more focused on integration test cases. One important thing to note about integration test cases is when creating a testing strategy for your application, always write more integration test cases as compared to unit test cases because more unit test cases in case of React components slowly becomes testing your internal implementation. Because when you're refactoring a particular flow, let's say you're refactoring a sign up flow, you'll be deleting a lot of components, you'll be creating a lot of new components. Those test cases for the test cases for those components become useless, or you might have to update them. But the whole sign up flow will most of the time will remain same. So that integration test case will actually provide you more stability, more confidence, and uh, and reusable test cases too. So thank you so much, guys, for listening. A very basic introduction of React testing libraries and the libraries required to writing test cases for your components. And if you have any questions,
Okay, so
stop sharing the
before
screen.
we move ahead to the Q&A, so I have shared a link to our feedback form. So I would request you all to please share your valuable feedback with us. And also, we'll be sharing the presentation link with everyone. And one good news that Recro is hiring. So I will be sharing the link where you can apply for the jobs at Recro. Okay. Yeah, so I'll now quickly move ahead to the Q&A. So the first and the most upvoted question that we have is, have you experienced any demerits of TDD? I'm specifically interested if test-driven development affected the team's velocity.
So I would say yes, it affects the team velocity in the shorter run, but in the longer run, when you don't have a lot of bugs coming in, when you don't have a lot of bugs coming in while creating new features in the older features, you'll see a total increase in your velocity and your development time for a particular feature. Obviously, it takes some time to get into that habit of writing first test cases and then writing the code of your component. That habits takes time, and that is essentially extra code that you're writing of test cases. But eventually, it pays off in the longer run.
Okay. Um, so next we have is how to test asynchronous calls in React components. And can you give an example?
Sure. So let me share my screen again.
Sure.
So we generally use this library called fetch mock. So this is a mock for your fetch utility, the fetch utility that browsers provides as a global variable right now. So all of our API calls are using this fetch function only. So this fetch mock makes a lot of sense for us. What we have right now is a function of this sort. um, render with Redux. So we call this render with Redux function and we write fetch mock. We have this fetch mock wrapper and we render a component. Let's render the accessible form component itself and we provide it mocks. A mocks is just an array of all of your asynchronous function mocking information. For example, if you're making you provide first is the URL. Like whenever an API call is made to this URL, get users. Actually, this will make more sense. Get users, method, get, and response. So you can write a response as simple 200 status code, or you can actually write a response as a complete JSON response. Maybe name this time. So what happens is whenever this accessible form makes an API call of method get to this particular get users URL, instead of making an actual API call, this particular response will be returned.
Okay. Then next we have is, what strategies do you suggest to test an impure function?
Oh, that's a difficult one. To test an impure function, actually, like one example is this async function itself. It's an impure function. Any function that is making an API call or talking to a database, it's an impure function. So you generally mock the impure part of it and you majorly test the pure part of it. That is the best strategy. But it also depends on a lot of cases where you actually don't want to mock impure parts of it. For example, like you're writing, it's not more on the front end side, but on the back end side, if you're writing an API call that actually makes an API call to other service or to internal service itself, then you don't want to mock it. But 90% of the cases, you actually mock the impure part and test the pure part.
Okay. Next we have is, okay, don't you think that integration testing is a big investment compared to the unit test cases? And do you think that the return on investment for integration testing is worth it?
Yes, that is what we have seen in the current organization. So I think what you mean by integration testing and what I mean by integration testing is a bit different, because integration testing and the unit testing, while in the sense of code, is almost similar. While the way you're writing code and the way you're making assertions, the only caveat here is what happens when for example, you're writing integration test cases for your sign up flow. What happens when the sign up flow itself changes, right? And in a very nascent stage startup, the sign up flow changes a lot. The payment flow changes a lot, but there are, like, when you actually grow, when you have a enterprise or a SaaS application, there are a lot of part that does not change over the period of time. Writing test cases for integration test cases for them makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so next we have is there any prerequisites like Jasmine or any JS testing library?
I think just the library that I talked about are enough to get up and running on writing test cases. Jasmine and all of these libraries are alternatives. So if you don't want to use Jest, you want to use Mocha or something else, that you can go for it. But the libraries that I talked about are good enough, are like regularly updated, community-wise trusted. So you can get started with them, and then later on, when you are in a stage that you are able to make a decision, then you can compare different libraries, different alternatives available, and then you can go for them.
Okay. Then we have how to run a specific test case by using a line number or without using only.
By using a line number and without using only, I don't think Jest has a way to do that. If it has, I'm not aware of it. But I think you should be able to do it by using a Visual Code extension. So VS Code extension has this capability. I don't have that enabled right now with me because I don't use it, but has this capability. It shows a play icon next to every test case. So you can just simply click on that play icon and that particular test case will run.
Okay. And how is React testing library different from Jest?
Good question. That was the whole point of the webinar, actually. So Jest is just a test runner that actually takes up all of your tests and runs them. And React testing library is a bunch of utility function that helps you write those tests that Jest will run. So now you understand the difference. Like one is helping you write it, the other is helping you run it.
Okay. Then which integration testing tools you use in your organization?
React testing library. So that's what I'm saying. Unit test cases and integration test casing, the way you write them are exactly similar, but the like what components you are writing, that is the only difference. So for example, you're writing on a parent component that actually, so a particular component that actually decides all of your sign up flow. So you have a multi-step sign up flow, but it's being done on the single route. So that route has a parent wrapper or a parent component. So if you're testing that component, it becomes your integration test cases because you're testing integrations between a bunch of child components. But if you're testing a particular child component, that becomes a unit test case. That's it. The way of writing, the way of running remains same. In both of these cases, you don't make a network call. In both of these cases, you try to mock as less as possible.
And what library approach would you recommend for React Native?
Um, so React testing library. So there's this library called testing library that has multiple flavors of it, and React testing library is just one flavor of it. There is React native testing library also. That is another flavor of the testing library that works on the same fundamental ideas but has a React native flavor to it. I haven't tried it personally myself, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. So you can, if you like the principle of testing library, you can try that React Native testing library flavor and see if that works for you.
We have a raise hand request from Pavan Kumar. Pavan, I'm handing over the mic to you.
Um,
Please speak up,
hey,
Pavan.
hello, Rajat. The question in which I asked about just DOM versus the React testing library. It was not just versus the testing library because from what I could see, just DOM looked very similar. It rendered the actual DOM, and we could directly get the elements using the DOM API and then do the assertion. So what's the difference between Jest DOM and the React testing library, and why should I use React testing library instead of Jest DOM?
So actually, these two libraries serves a very different purposes. React testing library is just to query the DOM, and just DOM is to assert your expectation. For example, to be disabled function that I said is a part of just DOM library that actually asserts something, that this component or this input element is being disabled. On the other hand, React testing library provides you utilities like get element by text, the query functions that you can use to query DOM. So one is providing you ability to query DOM, other is to expecting or asserting your expectation. That is the difference between
So,
these two
so
libraries.
both of these like complement each other, if we say so.
Exactly, exactly.
Got it.
So we hope your doubt got clarified, Pavan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks.
Awesome.
So I'll withdraw the mic now. Uh, Next we have is, do you use Cypress or Intern for front-end testing?
Yes, we do use Cypress for end-to-end testing, where we actually test our integration of a backend and the front-end services together. Yeah, we do.
And how can we test APIs on Node.js backend?
How can we test APIs on Node.js backend? So I don't have a lot of experience on the backend side, like testing test cases, writing test cases on the backend side, but definitely there are multiple courses that I've seen by the testing library author itself, Kenzie Dodds, that teaches you how to use the testing library to write test cases for Node.js backend. I can drop in a link, like I can send it to Ankita and she can send it to you
Sure.
after the webinar. Yeah.
Then how can you convince your client to adopt TTT, keeping the time constraints in mind?
So when I actually first joined CERTA, my first project was to undertake writing test cases and setting up a TDD practices in the company. So I was lucky enough for like my company to understand the value of it. But when you have to actually convince a client or or your manager to actually think about writing test cases, you'll have to show them data, the number of bugs that have arisen, and out of those bugs, the number of regression bugs that have arisen. So a regression bug is a bug that is arised in an unrelated part of the code that you're changing. So for example, I was building a feature X, but that actually in turn broke a feature A that was built like 4 months back. So those are the regression bugs. And if you have a lot of regression bugs coming up, then the only way to like solve them is writing test cases. Another way to solve them is having a manual testers, but that is not scalable. Like how many manual test cases you can have in a company?
Then we have is how to run actually. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so Jihad boy is saying that he's a backend developer and he uses Jest and Supertest. So I think
Awesome.
the
Super test.
previous question is answered.
Awesome. I haven't heard about this library called Supertest, but I'll surely check it out.
Okay. Okay, so how can we test using Jest when we are using Redux?
Sure. So the render with Redux function that I was showing you. So this is the render with Redux function. So any component that you render inside it. So if you will be, will be wrapped around the Redux provider. And if you want to provide it some initial state, so for example, if you want to test a settings page that already has the user's data inside the Redux. So you can provide you can mock the user data and provide it in the initial state argument. So how will we do it is something like render with Redux, and then user settings. Sorry. And initial state, user, and then again name, and maybe something else that you want. So when this component is being rendered, it actually has a Redux store available to it with this data preceded. You can like it will have the dispatch function capabilities and everything. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
I think Shreya asked that question. Shreya, you can reply in the chat. I think it did. So
Awesome.
we can move to the next question. Yeah.
Yep.
So have you heard have you heard of Cypress integration? If yes, then why use this integration test tool? E2E testing improves with this.
Sorry, I did not understand that. Can you please repeat?
So the question is that I think they're saying that Cypress Cypress integration testing is also there that we can use. So is it better to use that?
Okay, so first to clarify, when I say integration testing, I mean the multiple React components that you have, the integration testing of those components. The integration testing that you are referring to is the integration between the front end and the back end. So if you want to test that front end and back end integration, that is Cypress is a good tool for that. But if you want to test integration between multiple React components, then React testing library is good enough for that.
I also agree with you on this because I have myself used Cypress, so it's basically for the backend and front end integration that we can use it for.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I have one question here. So since I said that I've used Cypress and I use Istanbul along with it for the code coverage part, and the way Istanbul works is that it adds counter to every line in our code. And so does Jest do it in the same way?
Last I checked, Jest actually uses Istanbul internally to calculate coverage. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but previously it used to do that. So I think that answers the question. Right?
Okay, then in that case, I think in Jest also we can specify the files for which we want to measure the coverage.
Yes, yes. You can measure, you can specify the file that you want to measure the coverage for. You can specify a coverage threshold. There's this tool called Majestic. I'm not sure if it's still working, but it actually gives you a very detailed view of what all lines have been covered with a beautiful UI and how many times each line has been run while running all of the test cases. How many lines, like which of the lines has not been actually run, has not been reached at least once while running the test cases. So you can also check out that tool. Majestic is the name.
Okay. Okay, so the next we have is I have switched to TypeScript. How many bugs are caught before build? Strong typed component makes it easy. Do you use it?
We use TypeScript very heavily. We use TypeScript very heavily. But like TypeScript tests for a different category of bugs, and test your unit test cases and test cases test for a different category of bugs. So like these both things complements each other. You can't just say ki I need one, not the other. Yeah. But we do use TypeScript very heavily.
Okay. So next we have is how do you discipline a team that don't use unit tests? How to better handle this with manual QA team? Um,
Sorry, you want to discipline your team to not write test cases?
yeah, that's what the question says. How do you discipline a team that don't? Okay, so no. They are asking how to discipline a team to write unit test cases. I
Right.
think
So
like
how we did that, so that's an interesting point actually. How we did that was we set up the whole framework for writing test cases, and we started like me myself started writing a lot of test cases, and we put a check on the CI server. So if you have a pull request and if your coverage is dropping because of your pull request, we don't merge that PR. So you'll have to write a test case for it. There is no way around it.
okay. So next is how about using Istanbul for coverage? So I think that's already answered because
Yep.
as Rajat said that internally, Jess is also using Istanbul maybe, which you can
Yep.
check, and so that answers. Next is that can we add a debugger inside test case to debug?
Yes, that is a JavaScript piece of code. So you can do anything that you can do with JavaScript piece of code.
Okay. Next we have is as jest checks whether an element with given ID or name is rendered or not. In case we provide CSS property to element as display none, can you demonstrate working of a test case in this situation?
I can uh, point you to a Jest DOM utility. So Jest DOM has this utility called to be visible that actually checks exactly for that. Yep, you can use that instead of directly querying and see if it's being rendered or not.
I think in case of display none, it won't be able to find that component in the DOM itself.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. The utility we need to use in case we have opacity zero or visibility hidden.
Yep. So the name of the utility is to be visible. So if you want to check it out. Yeah.
Okay, then we have is how about using snapshot testing in RTL, both in application?
Snapshot testing in RTL.
Yeah, and RTL.
React testing library. Okay, React testing library. Um, I personally don't prefer snapshot testing because it. So we started doing snapshot testing. We did it for 2 or 3 months. We didn't realize a lot of value out of it because when you see a diff that snapshot provides you, it does not actually provide you a valuable information that why this diff is being created, or is it failing, or is it not failing. Most of the time we ended up updating the snapshot without actually paying a lot of attention to it, so we stopped doing that. So that is just a personal experience. I've seen a lot of people still using it, but I don't personally see a value add to it. But again, that is very opinionated. Try for yourself. If you see a value add, surely do it.
So we have come to the last question. Okay, so we have more. Sorry. Okay. So what should be the reasonable minimum percentage test coverage according to you?
There is no like golden rule to it. That depends on your business priorities also a lot, because when we started writing test cases, we set it out to like 65% because we calculated that is the only amount of time and bandwidth we'll be able to allocate to it, depending on the other business priorities. But when we started growing the team, we raised it to 85. I would say 100% is not practical, and you can achieve 100%, but you'll be writing a lot of unnecessary test cases that does not add a lot of value to your confidence level of the code base. So, yep, don't go for 100%. Try as much as you can. Like somewhere around 90, 85 to 90 is good enough. That is what we always try
Jihad
to.
says, yeah, Jihad says Uncle Bob recommended 70 to 80%. So I think that's it. So I'd like to thank you all for attending this session. And I would like to ask you guys again to please go and share your valuable feedback with us. So I've already shared the feedback link now. And I've already shared Rajat's profile link as well, and Recro community links as well. So you can join Recro front end community on WhatsApp. You can join us on Meetup, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. All the links are there in the chat itself. And we'll be sharing the presentation as well. So please stay tuned. Rajat, can we share the code as well? The sample code?
Sure, I'll have to push it to GitHub. I'll push it and give it the link to you.
Oh, that's great because that's going to help a lot. And now, before we take a leave, if anyone has anything to discuss with Rajat or any more queries, please come to the social lounge. And thank you all for attending this session. And thank you so much, Rajat. It's been a pleasure for the second time, like having you like do a webinar with us, and it was great having you today as well. So thank you, everyone.
Same here. Same here. Thank you.
One more important thing would like to tell that as I said that Recro is hiring. As a matter of fact, Certa is hiring too. So would you like to say something to the audience here, Rajat?
Sure. So Certa is a complete remote team, and we have been remote before COVID. So it's been like 6 years that we have been working remote, and we have awesome front end stuff going on. So we do mono repos, we do TypeScript. We have a lot of technical challenges in the sense that our whole application is configurable for enterprises, and we have two positions right now: a senior front end engineer and a junior front end engineer. So if you're interested, if you like to work with TDD, TypeScript, and awesome engineers remotely, feel free to apply on LinkedIn. I think Sana or Ankita will share the link I've already shared with them.
Yes, it's already shared in the chat itself. So I guess
And
that's
if you
it.
have any questions, and if you have any questions around the job post or anything, just feel free to message me on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay, so now that brings us to the end of the session. And those who have any questions or would like to speak up, have a talk with Rajat, could come to the social lounge. I'll end the session, and everyone will be redirected to the social lounge, and you can stay if you want to have a discussion. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.